We're going to talk about constraints in this video. When you're beginning CAD, it's a little bit of a leap to understand why constraints are so important, but the most important thing to realize is they are a significant time saver. The computer tries to use constraints as often as it can to help establish relationships between especially sketch figures and lines. Take, for example, a rectangle. If I want to create a rectangle, a square, it inserts several constraints to start off with. The first thing it does is it puts in these parallels. It makes the two sets of sides parallel to each other. It also establishes a right angle via a perpendicular in here, and it makes all the endpoints coincident with the adjoining line. So anytime we're selecting these pre-made sketch objects, it's already inserting quite a bit of the constraints that we need. So if those are the shapes that we need, it's a significant time saver. But keep in mind, if you're trying to work backwards by using a shape and then using that shape to maybe take away a side or two, then you're going to have to also delete those constraints because it could keep you from doing those things. Now, how do you delete a constraint? Well, first thing you need to do is see all the constraints. I usually just highlight it, but there are some other things I can turn off and on to find those constraints. Inventor and Fusion are pretty similar in that regard. Everything just looks a tiny bit different. Another constraint, the coincident obviously is we're putting 2 points in one. I love the hover and shows you everything. Collinear is also very useful because we can make sure that lines are sharing the same line, multiple sides of, say, boxes to keep everything in line, for example. One that's really important that I use all the time is tangent, because it saves a lot of work that would be much more cumbersome to do with, say, dimensions. So the coincidence says that 1 point in this arc touches the line and only 1 point. So when I select this, it perfectly touches only at 1 point. That can be really useful for symmetry, to make things even. That's something that would be much more difficult to do without that constraint. The more popular constraints would be parallel, perpendicular. A lot of those are inserted automatically by the computer. Horizontal and vertical, especially on Fusion where those are interchangeable, those also help keep everything oriented correctly. We don't use these advanced ones, smooth and symmetric, too often. Equal is a good one, especially when you're doing multiple holes or multiple similar shapes, and you can just make them all the same size and only put in one dimension instead of dimensioning everything there. So definitely get to know those constraints. They are, like I said, a real time saver, but you do have to know that you can delete them. So you can always grab one and just hit the delete button to take it away. Hopefully this is a good start for constraints. Know they're going to be there and know how to use them correctly and delete them when you don't want them.